Hello there, good morning. As Europe proposes a one-month truce to test Russia's willingness for peace, the challenges of achieving a lasting ceasefire grow. French President Macron's initiative suggests a focus on air, sea and energy infrastructure. But with ongoing distrust and American stance shift, is this truce a viable path to peace? And can Europe, along with Ukraine and Russia, agree on terms that lead to a lasting solution? How will the shifting dynamics of US involvement impact the peace talks? Welcome to Think Tank. The Washington Post has reported that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has proposed a partial ceasefire with Russia, offering to release prisoners and halt long-range attacks on civilian and energy infrastructure. This comes after the US froze military aid to Ukraine, accusing Zelensky of not being ready for peace. The proposed ceasefire aligns with a suggestion by France for a one-month truce, potentially leading to further negotiations on security guarantees. However, the US aid pause has raised concerns about Ukraine's ability to continue fighting, especially as the country depends heavily on US military support. The newspaper added that despite this, Ukraine is working on strengthening its own defense capabilities and sourcing military equipment from Europe. European countries are stepping up efforts to fill the gaps, but challenges remain in matching US capabilities, particularly in air defense and long-range strikes. President Macron's truce proposal exposes Western divisions and Europe's strategic vulnerabilities. As conflict interests, military dependence and shifting US support cast doubt on the path to lasting peace.
French President Emmanuel Macron stated that France and the UK have proposed a partial month-long truce between Russia and Ukraine that does not encompass ground fighting. He added that the truce would include a halt to mutual attacks on air, sea, and energy infrastructure. Macron emphasized that the challenge with this proposal is that in the event of a ceasefire, it would be very difficult to verify that the fighting has stopped along the front line, because the front line stretches from Paris to Budapest. Europe's capacity for independent military deterrence remains severely constrained. The reliance on US infrastructure and logistical support is profound. While there is a rhetorical commitment to strategic autonomy, practical implementation faces immense military-industrial hurdles. The divergence of European positions, exemplified by France's stance on frozen Russian assets, highlights the challenges of unified action. Without US support, Europe's ability to provide a credible deterrent is questionable. Russia's willingness to agree to a truce is contingent on battlefield gains and perceived Western weakness. The Kremlin, emboldened by the pause of US aid, views this as an opportunity to consolidate its territorial acquisitions. The Kremlin considers the pause in US aid to Ukraine as its best hope for peace. The economic and military obstacles to European independence are substantial. Rebuilding defense industrial capacity, coordinating diverse national militaries, and securing alternative energy sources are long-term projects. The recent pause in US aid, along with the potential for further shifts in US policy, has exposed the fragility of European security. The scramble for crucial minerals in Ukraine in the absence of US support adds another layer of complexity. Ultimately, Macron's truce proposal serves as a barometer for Western disunity and European strategic vulnerability. The path to lasting peace remains obscured by conflicting interests and the stark realities of military dependence.
Now, joining us from Kyiv is Ivan Us, who's an advisor at the Ukrainian National Center, and from Moscow, Olga Krasniak, who is an international relations professor. Welcome to you both. Thanks for being here with us. I'll start with you, Mr. Us. President Macron's plan includes a truce, air, sea, and energy infrastructure. Do you think this would be something that Ukraine could consider as a workable start?
Greetings to you, Mark, and to all audience. Actually, we need to start from something. That's why President Emmanuel Macron really make a proposition that something should be a first step towards long-term talks. It's hard to say whether it appears to be true, appears to be in reality, because it is very hard when you have full-scale war to start the process of peace, because Russia has its own vision, Ukraine has its own vision, and we are not ready to sacrifice by Ukrainian territory. Russia are not ready to say that, oh, they forgot about changes to the constitution that they made. That's why I think that now it's only first phase, as I said, at the talks. But as for me, it's very hard to really find an agreement, because sometimes when Ukraine say that we are not ready to peace talks, it's not correct. We are ready to peace talk, but we are not ready to forget about more than 150,000 crimes committed by Russia and more than $1,164 damage that Russia made to Ukraine. And say that we start from the next page the story and forgot about previous, we are not ready. That's why it's a problem of the starting talks, but who knows, everyone understands that something should be at the beginning, and probably Emmanuel Macron proposition could be this beginning, and the next days probably demonstrate whether it could be reality or no. Thank you, Mark.
And what about you, Ms. Krasniak, then? This one-month truce being proposed by Macron. Do you think Russia would ever agree to such a temporary ceasefire or truce?
No, of course not. I do not believe that Russia would accept this proposition. So first, it's not France or any European country, has a right or maybe has a capability to make such type of proposition, because understanding that European countries, they are dependent on the security issue on the United States. So, and I do not think that either European country would come with a proposition which potentially can be accepted by Russia. And the second point about this a potential 1 month truce, so I do not believe Russia would take it, because we understand. So it comes out of maybe disparity of European countries, because we see that this military support is somehow stopped coming to Ukraine, and of course Ukrainian soldiers they wouldn't have much time probably just to fight, because who would support them? And in this case, maybe this proposition of 1 month, it's maybe just to recollect maybe some more weapons from European country or something else from somewhere else. And in this case, I do not believe that this proposition would ever be accepted by Russia.
Coming back to you, Mr. Us, I mean, Ukraine, I'm sorry to say it, is in a bad way after America has suspended its military aid. How bad is it for Ukraine? And could Europe fill that gap?
So actually, as for stop of military aid from US, it's news of the previous day. So it's just 1 day after that appeared, and now we could not say that the serious problems will be, because today in the morning I have talked with our soldiers that on the front line, and I asked them whether it's serious influence on them, and they said to me that for the last time they received military support from US in November. So actually it means that the US, of course, US aid, military aid played big role, but not a crucial one. And now they said to me that we have enough local sources. Ukraine changed its production, made it in more military way. That's why without US it will be rather problem for civilians, because the main problem that we can face with stop of or postpone in USA military aid. It's anti-rockets, destroying Russian rocket, destroying civilians, destroying our cities. And of course, that will be a big problem, but that problem for civilians. For the army, it's not a problem because, yes, Russian rocket murdered a lot of our soldiers in several days ago in Dnipropetrovsk region, but it's a rare thing. That's why our soldiers said that, okay, they're not problem because they have enough local weapon. They have deposits from US previous aid, and of course Europe should play more important role because you know that after Ukraine it will be Europe. Europe should understand that it's not the Ukraine is not the end of the story. That as German Council of Foreign Affairs said, that in case of Ukraine defeat, the war between Germany and Russia, it's a question of six or 10 years. And of course, Europe should understand that Russia will not stop. That's why Europe should activate its military production. 30% increase in military production in Europe for 3 years. It's not such a big figure, I think. That's why Ukraine, of course, talk with European partners, talk with Canada, talk with Japan, South Korea. So we have realized a lot. But after today's speech of Donald Trump in Congress, when he said about letter of President Zelensky, I think that it could be reason for resuming military aid for Ukraine. And of course, it's in Ukraine, we see that as a positive signal that US still in the game and still support Ukraine. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, Ms. Krasniak, as Mr. Us was just saying there, he was saying that Russia will not stop with Ukraine. Next stop, the rest of Europe. Is that how you see Russia's plans?
Absolutely not. It's one of the false narratives which Ukraine promotes in the last 3 years. It was one of these issues which Zelensky was mentioning when he was begging and asking for money, for help, for military support, for anything. And of course, European leaders, they understand Russia never had an attitude, to strike first. So because we see it something different. And considering the issues of safety and security, and from the geopolitical perspective, Ukraine, it's a backyard of Russia. And Ukraine is considered totally differently, considering or comparison with European countries or anything. Because, well, it's our territory. Ukraine's never existed as a country, but for the centuries, it was our territory. Which we obtained for centuries ago. And in this case, no. So this narrative is completely false. And I understand that European leaders, they also understand this. But still, they have certain acts. They act in a way to contain Russia, also using this narrative, even they really understand. So Russia is not going to fight with Europe until its security will be undermined.
Okay, okay. I want to ask you as well. That's a very a Putin view of Ukraine being still a part of Russia based on very old borders. But I want to ask you, Ms. Krasniak, Macron mentioned that the truce would not cover ground fighting. Why do you think that is?
Of course, when we think about the peace talks, we should understand, or diplomatic talks, diplomatic negotiations, we should understand what is happening in the battlefield, what's happening in the ground, what we see in the ground. Russia in the last 3 years is moving to the west of Ukraine, basically regaining our own territories. And we see here is no single example with Russia will be withholding, like critically withholding. It is not going to happen. And considering now with all these negotiations which have been happening in Riyadh, in Istanbul, so we see the situation in the battlefield is continuous. So Russia continues its offensive operations. And in this case, that would be the issue we need to start off. And Russia definitely is winning, and Ukraine has no chances. And this would be the decisive factor for peace talks between Russia and the United States.
Okay, coming back to you, Mr. Us, then. What do you make of this coalition of the willing that Starmer has spoken about over the last few days? And who do you think might be part of it, apart from Britain and France? Who else might be a part of this coalition of the willing? And will it have any effect?
Of course, we understand that Europe, seeing the position of US, that US played not such an active role. The United Kingdom tried to substitute the United States. You know that in the Ramstein group, it's a group of support of Ukraine, and before that, US was made leader on the previous administration. On the current administration, United States decided not to play the main role, but the United Kingdom is ready to play this role. So they formed this coalition, formed the agenda. As you said, France could be in this group. Of course, other European countries like Germany. Now we are waiting for Mr. Merz to become the chancellor of Germany. But not only European countries, because Canada, I think, could be there. And Turkey, don't forget about Turkey. Turkey is a country that has so many historic quarrels with Russia that Turkey can be an active player. And President Erdogan, he said that he's ready to send his troops to Ukraine. So, of course, it should be other troops from European countries, but at least Turkey is in second army in NATO after the United States, and Turkey could be a player. And another country that we should take into account is Japan, and especially South Korea. Because when Russia starts to use Northern Korea soldiers, for South Korea, it's a direct threat. Because South Korea understands that today Northern Korea soldiers help to Russia. It means tomorrow Russia help to Northern Korea. It's a very good motivation to South Korea, a very good military country with a very good military production, to be an active player in coalition in support of Ukraine. Plus Australia, of course, New Zealand. So at least we have several countries in different parts of this world that have direct interest and that could form this idea presented by Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and appeared in Ukraine. So that's why, as I said, it's not the end of the story, and we will see what will be in this year.
Do you accept that, Ms. Krasniak, that using North Korean soldiers in this war has brought South Korea into the mix? And also, what is Russia's problem with the peace plan, the Coalition of the Willing's peace plan at the European summit a few days ago?
Well, first of all, North Korean soldiers, it's a issue, it's not a proven issue. Here is no single proof which notifies that North Korean soldiers will be fighting. That would be part of Ukrainian propaganda with no proven facts. But given the examples, maybe like a potential involvement of different countries in this conflict in Ukraine, I do not believe because it would happen. I do not believe it would happen because all these countries, or New Zealand, or Australia, or South Korea, they aim for the most of their national interest, and their national interest it would be economic relations and with Russia as well. So, and with all this instability on the geopolitical scale, it's not in their interest. So, and I would question and I would challenge any possibility of some remote countries just to be involved in this conflict directly. So, but how Russia is open to the talks? Well, we've been open to the peace talks since the beginning of the conflict, and we all know that the first round of negotiations in 2022, which been taking place in Istanbul, Ukrainian side they did not go, so they decided to continue, and it presumably British influence of then Prime Minister Boris Johnson. It seems to be it was his influence just to continue the fight, and we see for the 3 years many things happen. And also considering the role for the United Kingdom in Ukraine. So we should mention about this agreement with the time of 100 years. And we do not know for sure what Zelensky promised to United Kingdom. So what kind of mineral resources, what kind of territories, we don't know what would be maybe a secret agreement under this agreement for 100 years. But definitely Ukraine cannot be considered as a sovereign state. So it's proxy, it's American proxy, or British proxy, but definitely it is played in the hands of different countries.
And Mr. Oss, I mean, European leaders have emphasized Ukraine's sovereignty, but isn't the reality that whatever happens, any peace negotiations is going to involve Ukraine having to give part of its territory, a substantial amount, to Russia?
Of course, such idea happened, but as I said, Ukraine is not ready for that. Our partners, I mean, European partners, Turkey, constantly repeat that they support territorial integrity of Ukraine in borders after returning to our independence in 1991. So some people said that Ukraine appeared in 1991. No, we actually appeared in the 8th or approximately 8th century, several hundreds years before Russia, actually. That's why when Russia said that Ukraine, the traditional part of Russia, no. When Ukraine appeared, there was no Russia at all. So that's why our partners understand that, European partners understand that, Turkey understand that. And of course, when we're talking about our borders, we meaning borders of 1991. Actually, we are ready to return Suja and part of Kursk region to Russia, because Russia constantly forgot about the fact that some part of Kursk region under Ukrainian control for more than half a year. Actually, if you switch on Russian television, such a feeling that they forgot that they have such a territory. I understand Russia because it's easier for them, but nevertheless, Suja still under Ukrainian control, and actually a lot of Ukrainian language people living in Kursk region, and Ukraine take into account this fact. Nevertheless, we are ready to say that it's not Ukraine, and we're ready to return to Russia. So, but returning to territory, of course, as I said, partners can talk about some temporary ways for concluding peace, but not recognition of those territories as Russia, as our partners, I mean Western partners, never recognized the occupation of Baltic countries by the Soviet Union, and of course Eastern Germany, and they always recognize that Germany is a single. And when after big problems in the Soviet Union economy that led to break the Berlin Wall and then union of Germany's, of course, it's the same situation can be in Ukraine when some temporary decision that, of course, let's make peace and Russia let's control territory that they control, but not more. But this territory will not be recognized either by Ukraine or by European partners as a Russia. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. And Mr. Krasniak, one of the ideas put forward by the European leaders was an assurance force to prevent future conflict. How do you think Russia would see this?
Is it a question to?
Yes, to you, Ms. Krasniak, like an assurance force, as the European leaders call it, being permanently in Ukraine after the war to prevent future conflict. Do you think Russia would be okay with that?
Well, Ukraine can do nothing without anyone's support, and Russia can do by its own. And that would be questions about Russia's position, and Russia's position is very clear. And what Russia wants, it was notified and explicitly mentioned many times by our President Vladimir Putin. So it's a neutral status for Ukraine. We would not accept the deployment of foreign troops. It's a non-attendance of Ukraine in NATO. So because all these things, they are well known. So, and Russia, that would be a decisive power in these peace talks, of course, with the United States as a geopolitical leader and the most important supplier of weapons and financial help. So, and in this case, it's not Ukraine, not even any other country who would be, just to make a decision about Russia's stance and what to give Russia. So it would be Russia to decide. And what we want, it was explicitly said.
And Mr. Oss, I don't know if you've heard the British ambassador, Peter Mandelson, the British ambassador to the United States, has said that Ukraine should put down its arms first and then ask Russia to also stop the war. Do you think there's any use in that?
First of all, there is no belief either from Ukraine to Russia, either from Russia to Ukraine. That's why all those ideas to stop fighting, I don't think that it will be realized. It's a very good statement. If Ukraine stop fighting, there will be no Ukraine. If Russia stop fighting, there will be no war. And the Ukraine constantly repeats that we don't want to conquer Russia. We don't need even Suja and part of Kursk region. We are ready to return, but let's Russia return our land to Ukraine. Of course, Russia say no, but it means that, as I said, half a year we controlled part of Kursk region, and I think that Ukraine, for more than 3 years actually, depending its independence, depending the global democracy, as for me, as the former Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, Chrystia Freeland, said yesterday in an interview to a US TV channel, that Western partners should understand that it's not the relationship between two countries, it's a relationship between the global orders that exist and attempt by Russia to destroy this order.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to cut you off there because we're just out of time, but it's a pleasure to have you both on the program. Ivan Us, advisor at the Ukrainian National Center, joining us from Kyiv, and Olga Krasniak, the international relations professor, joining us from Moscow. Thank you both for being here on the program. And that brings us to the end of Think Tank. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and have a good day.